Attenzione. Ecco.
Okay, this is a question for a not really technical person who's watching this. So, you work with traditional animation and digital. What's the difference between them two?
There's a lot of difference, mostly in the execution. The principles, as far as performance and timing and staging, are all the same, but the execution is very different. I try and carry over as many of the principles in the execution as I can. I still start with doing small thumbnails. I find it the fastest way to get my ideas together, and then when I start setting keys, I've got kind of a visual roadmap to go from. But many animators work the same way. They work in poses, and then they fill in the spaces in between, just as you would in 2D animation. But in 3D animation, much like Stefan was saying in his presentation this morning, the camera interaction between the character and the environment is much greater than it was in traditional animation. You would usually work with a stationary camera, very flat composition in 2D, whereas now you have to be very aware of how your character is moving and the camera is moving around the character, and the dramatic effect that you could use these tools for.
Yeah. In your movies, you usually mix a lot real world with virtual worlds. What technical problems you have to resolve mixing them two worlds together?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of sort of visual compositing problems, but the problems we deal with the most are when there's interaction between an animated character and a real actor on stage, especially if the real actor isn't used to sort of improvising to something that isn't there. They're used to reacting to another actor there, and that's how they kind of build their performance. When they're talking to a tennis ball on a stick, for instance, it's not as easy for them to sort of get into the moment and kind of imagine how the scene would play out if the actor was really there, or if they're actually touching, trying to get hand positions that will work so that later when you're trying to put your character in, it all makes sense, and making sure that the eye lines work. And depending on the camera, different solutions are appropriate, because it changes depending on whether they're looking at something close or something far away, or if the character's moving around. So basically every setup you have to find some new sort of inventive solution, and there's no set way to do it. You have to kind of figure out what works best for that camera angle or for whatever the actor has to do on stage. Sometimes it's the ball on a stick, sometimes it's tape on a wall, sometimes it's a guy in a blue suit moving around to provide a more tactile eye line. But making sure that you shoot something that is going to work when you add the character in later is probably the biggest challenge all the way, because if you don't get it right, it doesn't matter how well you animate it or how well you light it and composite it. It's never going to feel quite right, because you're aware that the actor isn't reacting to something real.
In The Wizard of Oz, there's this ceramic doll and monkey. Do you use some real person to get the animation right, all the expressions? How do you manage
We
it?
actually had a lot of reference on Oz. We were really fortunate. For the China doll, we had a marionette artist on stage, and originally it was conceived that he would just be there to provide reference to help set up the camera, and on the rehearsal pass give the actor something to act off of. But his performance with the China doll actually really sort of influenced a lot of how the animation worked, the kind of quirky nature that the puppet moved, and also his simple acting choices, because the puppet could only do certain things, kind of influenced the final look. We also had live animal reference. We had a capuchin monkey come in, which was the reference for Finley the monkey, and we also had some baboons come in to give reference for the Queen's evil flying army. So we had the animal reference, but then also we had our actors on stage, and we videotaped all the rehearsals so that we could take cues off the actors. If there was something they did that we thought was appropriate for the moment or whatever, we could incorporate that. And most of the time it was kind of a jumble of all these things. Even if we were sticking closely to what the actor did, we would bring either the puppet sort of nuances into that performance, or the animal influences, and if it was the monkey. So we were armed with a lot of reference, and the animator could basically take these and then bring his own sort of, his or her own creativity and life experience into it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.